And another very interesting revelation was, geez, just a couple of weeks ago, I'm looking on the Discovery Channel, and here's one of the latest models they're trying to describe for how our Earth, and how our Moon was formed. And it's called the Orpheus theory. And very clearly, they describe a rogue planet enters our solar system, whacks our primitive Earth, and in the process of doing so, coalesces to make our Moon. Eventually, all these fragments would then coalesce to make our Moon. So that is, again, another almost confirmation of what the Sumerians were saying, that there was this initial collision with this Nibiru and our primitive Earth, which then created the asteroid belt, and forever making our solar system now with 12 members, and this planet being on a very highly elliptical orbit. So if we ever do find this other planet, it will be very interesting to denote that there might be ancestors of ours actually living there. So this search for a planet X, it takes us into today's modern science, and you'll note that many of the stories being told about this, as I mentioned, are based on information that we can confirm. The idea that there is a planet X within our solar system basically first started in the early, modern-wise, started in the early 80s by the research done by Dr. Robert Harrington. He was the lead astronomer for the Naval Observatory in Washington, and he went on film with this researcher, Zachariah Sitchin, explaining that he was looking for another planet within our solar system. He called it the 10th planet, not the 12th planet. But based on the long elliptical orbit of this planet and his information, it was right along the same lines of this information for a Nibiru, an ancient planet X. And very interestingly enough, I try and do my best to stay abreast of the latest advances with our space imaging technology. And we had a satellite just launched last month called the Space Infrared Telescope Facility that is going to go out there and do very specific imaging on coordinates looking for brown dwarfs, failed stars, or, if you will, a planet X. And I spoke with one of the lead astronomers, Dr. Michelle Fowler. I attended a conference at the Jet Propulsion Laboratories in Pasadena where I, of course, asked her point blank, do you believe in this idea of a planet X? Is it possible? Could it be out there? Would we see it? And she said, yes, this sort of will be looking for objects, extrasolar objects within our own solar system. But one of the theories that originally first got this idea going was when, in the early 80s, Dr. Robert Harrington started to do research. And basically what he did was, looking at the outer planets, he noticed that the outer planets were being pulled in a certain direction, which led him to believe that there's something still out there. Meaning, when we found Uranus, there was this tug still being exerted on the planets in a certain direction. So they went out and found Pluto. And it was only in 1930 that we found Pluto. But once we found Pluto, we still said, wow, there's an influential pull taking place on the planets that we can't account for. So they said we must still look beyond Pluto for this planet X, Roman numeral 10, 10, but also X unknown, because the gravitational influences are affecting the inner planets, so it must be there. But where is it? Unfortunately, that model has been a little bit outdated now. The current research tends to suggest that the perturbations, this anomalous pull, they don't know what's accounting for it. So as far as a planet X and trying to locate it, they've really stuck more towards infrared astronomy, looking with very advanced space telescopes for heat signatures. Excuse me. And just to show that some of the latest research that is taking place, these are some articles that were covering this in today's modern science, that there is something out there. Pluto has a far-out peer, or that there's possibly a 10th planet within our solar system. A mystery revolves around the sun. All this information is going on today with current searches to prove that there is something out there, and that the more and more we look deep into space, it's not a question of being able to locate a planet X, but being able to identify it. Because when we go out with these new advanced satellites and snap a picture, we might see a star field that contains 3,000 planets, from stars and planets, from brown dwarfs to white dwarfs, failed stars, and it's very hard to catalog all of these planets. And so what modern astronomy does now today is they take astronomical plates of the sky. When they snap an image, they can then correlate every known planet that they know of, and then that leaves the other candidates to be possibly new discoveries, or, if you will, a planet X. So that's really the main struggle right now, is to try and determine all of the information that's taken by these satellites, which stars are unknown to us and which ones are possible candidates for Planet X. I must say also that I will be discussing in my workshop, got to save the juicy stuff for the other talk, that I do have a lot of information coming out of mainstream science which does confirm and shows very clearly that, NASA, even though it might be called, never a straight answer in some cases, but the National Aeronautics Space Association does have an interest in this information and is aware of this knowledge. And so, if we do actually find this planet, it will be very interesting to see what takes place. I think I ran through this a little bit quickly, but this is kind of where I was going to end it, and just saying that tomorrow morning at between 8:30 and 10:15, I will be discussing more of the esoteric understandings for this idea of a Planet X, and that if we do actually find it, we might have ancestors that come from this planet, which I'll discuss deeply tomorrow. The Sumerian information for these beings, the Anunnaki, is very well documented, and we have thousands of artifacts on display that clearly denote their daily activities. I venture to, over the next couple of years, hopefully gain access to some of these collections. Many of you might have seen the movie The Raiders of the Lost Ark. At the very end, they are wheeling the Raiders, they're wheeling the Arkway into this room where there's just thousands of boxes. That's not too far-fetched from the realistic thing of what's going on. Turns out the British Museum has thousands of these cylinder seals and tablets that are not on public display. Many of them are because they do not understand the information that is being listed. So when we take a new look at some of this information and shed new light onto it, it really does start to answer some questions and raise some eyebrows. I personally, in my effort to understand this information, I hired a professional antiquities photographer, meaning you can't just go into the museum and take pictures of these amazing artifacts. This gentleman is allowed to do that. So I hired him to go to the British Museum in London, the British Museum and the Louvre in Paris, and he took over 500 digital images of just artifacts that I'm specifically interested in, having to do with the Anunnaki and the Sumerian knowledge of Nibiru and the solar system. And I've created a digital archive which I store on my website, xfax.com. Do I have it listed here? I didn't even put my website on the slide. That's okay. You can just do a search on the internet for Jason Martell, but I've created a catalog of over 500 images having to do with the Sumerian culture. And this is important because we just had a war in Iraq. Many of these artifacts that are still stored there, some of them got broken and destroyed. It's not good. And so for us to learn the legacy of our ancient cultures, we need to preserve that information. So hopefully in the next couple of years, and my quest is to shed more light on this idea of ancient astronauts and put to test the theories of mythology and say, what if these are events that actually did take place? Thank you very much.